Okay, welcome back, Giant fans. Today we're going to talk about the 1970s, and it was not a very good decade for our New York Giants at all. Probably one of the worst decades in our history, but that does not prevent us from collecting and preserving ticket stubs from the games that were played. So, as bad as the seasons were, we cherish the history so it doesn't repeat itself. So, we're going to start off with our first preseason game against the Browns, which is right here, Game A. I am missing the second one at Pittsburgh. That was Phil Simms' debut, so that one's a little bit tricky to come by. Then we have Game B, home preseason game, and then Game C. So we did have 3 home preseason games that year. This one right here is $11.50 because it's a mezzanine ticket, but the lower tier is $9, as you see there. Okay, so the first game is an away game against the Eagles, which is right here. Then we have the first home game, which is against the Cardinals, September the 9th. Then we have the first away game, which is against Washington. The Eagle home game. And then right here is Phil Simms' regular season debut, September the 30th, 1979, against the New Orleans Saints. That was the first game that he got in that season, where he saw game action. Okay, this was his first start, so very similar to Daniel Jones, how Daniel Jones got in against the Cowboys last season, and then he got his first start, later on in the season. So this right here is Phil Simms' first start against the Buccaneers, October the 7th, 1979. Then we have the 49ers home game. I am missing the Chiefs away game from 79. We do have a nice full ticket here from the Rams, 1979. And this looks like a full ticket. It's actually a top and a bottom kind of put together, but that's what a full ticket would look like from 1979. This was, I believe, the Dallas game number 5. Game number 6 against the Falcons at home. Then we have at the Buccaneers, 1979. Home game against the Redskins. Away game against Dallas. Away game against St. Louis. Home game against the Colts. And that was the end of the 1979 season. So, like I said, not a lot of fond memories from the 70s. 1979, we finished up with a 6-10 record. Okay, on to 1978. This was the first preseason game right there against Cleveland. Then we had the first home game, preseason game against the Jets. The Chargers I don't have. This is another preseason game, Game C. And then behind that, you see a Stadium Club admission. This was for Game B against the Steelers. And what that would do is give you admission to the halftime, like the suites and things like that, that they had at that time. Pre-game admission, all that kind of stuff. All right, then we have an away game against the Bucks. Home game, game number 1, 1978. Game number 2, home. Game number 3, missing the away Falcon game. Here is an away game. I believe it's at Dallas, and then more Stadium Club tickets behind that. This is a full ticket from 1978. So here's what your Giants ticket looks like in 1978. This is the Buccaneer game. Again, we're in the upper tier here, so we're looking at $9 for a ticket. $9. Okay. This is the Redskin home game, game number 5, with the Stadium Club admission right behind it. Then we have our New Orleans Saints road game, St. Louis Cardinals away game, Washington away game. Then this infamous game right here is a memory that we like to wash away. This is the Miracle at the Meadowlands. I don't need to tell you the history behind this, but basically Giants were winning in the fourth quarter with not a lot of time left. We turned around to hand off the ball, fumbled it away, fumbled the game away. Herman Edwards runs it in for a touchdown, and that pretty much summed up how the 70s went for us as Giant fans. So I do have 2 of these tickets. They are pretty expensive if you go to purchase them. But yeah, that's a game that a lot of us will like to forget. So we will move on. The at Buffalo game I don't have. Game number 7 at home, right here, December the 3rd. And then this right here would be a full ticket from 1978 against the Cardinals. And the last game that I have for 78 is an away game against the Eagles. Again, I have the top and the bottom put together, so that's what the full ticket would have looked like if it was together. And 1978, we also wrap up with a 6-10 record. On to 77. Okay, 1977. We do have a bunch of preseason games this year. August 6th, August 13th, and August 20th. I don't have those 3 up there, but I do have the home games from the 29th, Game B, the 4th, Game X, and next week, Game C against the Dolphins. So a lot of preseason games in 77. Game number 1 against the Redskins, right there. I do not have the Dallas away game from 77. I have the away game against the Falcons, October the 2nd. This is a full ticket from 1977, so that's what the ticket looks like, $9. This one is against the Eagles, as you can see. 49ers, Game 3. Washington Redskins, October 23rd, 1977. Okay, then we have at St. Louis, nice full ticket from St. Louis. Game number 4, home game. At Tampa Bay. This was a home game against the Cleveland Browns. This was an away game against the Bengals. And this was a home game against the Cardinals, Game 6. Okay, moving on. This is an away game against the Eagles. And then game number 7 against, I believe that was the Colts, but I could be mistaken. But nevertheless, we finished up 77 with a 5-9 record. Okay, so 1976, the first year that we are in our own home in Giant Stadium. We did not play a home game for a while, which you'll see. But the first preseason game at the Patriots I don't have, but I do have this Jets game right here, which was delayed 2 days because of a storm, which you see on the sticker there. It was supposed to be played on August the 9th. Terrible storm pushed it back 2 days, and that is the ticket right there. Let's see. This is an away game against the Steelers preseason. And then we get to the regular season. So September the 12th against Washington away. An away game against the Eagles. And remember, like I said, we started the season off with a bunch of away games. Here's another one against the Rams, 1976. So this is all through September, which we had no home games. Okay, and then we finally get a home game here. This is the first game at Giant Stadium, October the 10th, 1976 against Dallas. And that opened up our Giant Stadium. Then we have an away game here against the Vikings. And we have game number 2 and a Stadium Club pass behind that. Game number 3, and this is a full ticket from 1976. So you're looking at $9 there for the ticket, and that is an unused game ticket from 1976. Missing the away game at Dallas. Here is game number 4, Washington. At Denver. Game number 5 against the Seahawks. And then we are going to go to game 6 down here against the Lions, and game 7 over here against the Cardinals. And 1976 was not our finest hour. We finished up 3-11. Okay, on to 1975. So 1975 was a year where we played at Shea Stadium, and it was the only year that we played at Shea Stadium. So here are the tickets from that season. We have the first one here, which was played at Schaefer Stadium against the Patriots in the preseason. Then we have at the Chargers. Here's a game against the Jets that was played at the Yale Bowl. The August 30th preseason game I don't have. That was versus the Steelers at Princeton, believe it or not. This one is one of my favorites from this era. This is a 1975 ticket. Cleveland Browns versus New York Giants, but with a Seattle Seahawks helmet on it, which is kind of weird. And it says Seattle Seahawks presents NFL football. So the game was played, it was being sponsored by the Seahawks, but it was the Browns versus the Giants. Very strange, but that's what happened. 1975. Preseason game against Miami I don't have, the one at Miami. This is the away game against the Eagles. This is the, I don't have that one, at the Redskins. This is an away game against the Cardinals. This was the first game at Shea Stadium, game number 1, $10. This is an away game against the Bills. This is game number 2 at Shea Stadium. And here is a full ticket from Shea Stadium. You don't see a lot of these because we only played there for 1 year, even though the team was not very good. But this is a full ticket against the Chargers, $8, field level, 1975, game 3. Okay, there's game number 4. Game number 5 against the Eagles. As you can see, it says Shea Stadium right on the ticket there. This is an away game against the Packers. I don't have the Dallas home away game from that year. Here's game 6. Game 7 against the Saints, which happens to be the very last game played at Shea Stadium, and this is a full ticket. So these tickets are very good to hold on to as well, because obviously last game at Shea, full ticket, not easy to come by. And then the last game from 75, 49ers Giants on the road, and we wrap up 75 with a 5-9 record. Okay, 1974. In 1974 and 1973, partially, we played our games at the Yale Bowl while we were getting the stadium ready, while we were getting Giants Stadium ready. So the first couple of games I don't have from the preseason. We have at Oilers, we have versus the Patriots, but I do start off my collection here with the Giants and Jets game, which was played at the Yale Bowl, August 17th. That was more of like a yearly game that they used to play. Then at the Steelers, Giants-Eagles from Palmer Stadium, which was also an annual game. Then we have another preseason game, which I don't have, at Buffalo. So again, 6 preseason games that year. Game number 1 at the Yale Bowl against the Redskins. Game number 2 against the Patriots. The away Dallas Cowboys ticket. Game number 3 right here against the Falcons. An away game against the Philadelphia Eagles. An away game against the Redskins. And as you'll see, a lot of the Giants tickets from this era look exactly the same. The colors change, but all the tickets are pretty much the same. Dallas Cowboys, game 4. Missing the Chiefs game. Here is game 5. This is against the Jets. This is 1974 away game against Detroit. This is against the Cardinals, game 6. And then this is a full ticket against the Bears, December the 1st, 1974. Okay, and then to wrap up 1974, this is a full ticket right here from the Yale Bowl, so you kind of have an idea of what they look like. You're looking at $8, game number 7. This is against the Eagles. You see Yale Bowl, New Haven, Connecticut, $8, and that's the whole thing. So usually what would happen is they would tear it off right there where it's the dotted line, and you would keep the top part, and they would keep this bottom part here that says Yale Bowl. Either way, they would keep one half, you get the other half. Then this right here is the away game against the Cardinals, and that took care of 1974, thankfully, because we were 2-12. All right, 1973, we start off with an away game against the Chargers. Then we have the Patriots again in the preseason, which we probably play them more in the preseason than any other team. And then we have the Jets. Well, yeah, the Jets and Patriots. We play them both probably more than any other team. Then game number 1 from this year, August 26th, home game. And this happens to be now at Yankee Stadium. September 1st, 1973, I don't have that one. I don't have this one either from September the 8th, so we will move on. Game number 2 at Yankee Stadium. Game number 3, this is the final game at Yankee Stadium right here, September 23rd. So you'll see now the next couple games are at the Yale Bowl. So in this season, we split between the Yale Bowl and Yankee Stadium. So this was the final game there, September 23rd, 1973. Then we have an away game against the Browns. Here is the first official game at the Yale Bowl. It's a nice full ticket against the Packers. And that's what the ticket looked like, very similar, almost exactly the same to the one that you saw on the previous page. Game number 5 right here against the Redskins. A full ticket against the Cowboys, 1973. This one I don't have at St. Louis. This is the away game against the Raiders. This is game 6 against the Cowboys at home. Here's another full ticket from 73 against the Cardinals. This is the away Eagle game. And then this is the away Redskins game from 1973. A pretty nice looking ticket for 1973. Nice graphics. Okay, this is the Rams game away. And then this is the end of the 1973 season. Again, not a good era for the Giants, 2-11-1. And we move on to 1972. So in 1972, we had a Hall of Fame game against the Chiefs, which you see right here. It was played in Canton, Ohio, against the Kansas City Chiefs. This is also a ticket that is not easy to come by. It was played in July. One of 2 games, I believe, that were played in July. The other being 1994, I think, against the Dolphins. Maybe July 30th in the preseason we played in July. But I believe these are the only 2 games that I can recall that we played in July. Here's our annual game against the Eagles at Palmer Stadium. Then we have 2 full tickets right here from 1972, which I keep separate. This one is against the Browns. Again, you can see that they look pretty much exactly the same to the other ones. So this is Yankee Stadium, full ticket. And then game 3, same thing, Yankee Stadium, full ticket against the Saints. And a ticket costs you $6 at that point, and $7 for mezzanine, as you see right there. Okay, this is the away game against the Steelers, game number 1. Then we have our annual Jets game at the Yale Bowl. We have our preseason game against the Patriots. We have game number 1 at Yankee Stadium on September the 10th. The at Detroit game I don't have, but once I get this ticket from 1972, I will have every ticket from this season. That's the last one that I need for all of the games, home and away, including the preseason. This is game number 2 from 1972. This is the away Philadelphia game. This is game 3 at home. This is the 49er game on the road. This is game number 4 at Yankee Stadium. Game number 5 and game number 6. So 3 home games in a row. Because they were playing at Yankee Stadium, a lot of away games earlier in the year. So we did not have conflicts with the Yankees. This is the away Washington Redskins game. This is an away game versus the Cardinals. This is game 7, home. This is a away game against the Bengals, and this is, again, a top half and bottom half, what a full ticket would have looked like for the Bengals. And then this is a game against the Dolphins, and obviously in 1972, the Dolphins were undefeated, and we were one of the teams that they beat that year. They beat us by 10 points, but this ticket is worth a pretty decent amount of money because people do collect 72 Dolphins tickets. So since we played them, that's one of the tickets. This was an away game against Dallas, December 17th, 1972. And then we move on to 1971. The first preseason game I don't have against Houston, but then we move on to the Patriots once again, and I have that one. Then our annual Giants-Jets game from the Yale Bowl. Our annual Giants-Eagles game from Palmer Stadium. Then we have a football doubleheader. This is the 10th annual pro football doubleheader. This was something they used to do in the 60s and 70s. Mostly, earlier in the 60s is when it started, I believe. And this doubleheader ticket featured the Steelers and the Jets versus the Jets and the Giants versus the Browns. So something that you will never see today, most likely, but something that was obviously done. And then over here, I don't have the preseason game versus the Steelers, but I just wanted to show you this piece of history that I think is pretty cool. This is a steak dinner from the Giants, which I guess was given out to certain people, or they were able to buy tickets, and you would get an analysis of last week's game a preview of the upcoming contest with a steak dinner. And it was at Gallagher's on 33rd right here. The price was $10 per person, $125 for season tickets for 13 dinners. So if you want to buy all of the steak dinners and go there every time, it would be $125. Just a really cool, I think, piece of history here. So Thursday night steak dinners with the Giants and talk about the game. Pretty neat. Okay, so that'll go over there. Okay, so next we have at the Packers, then our home game right here, September 26th, away game at St. Louis, which I don't have. Then we have an away game at Dallas, which I don't have. Game 3 at home. The away Philadelphia Eagle game right here. Then we have a couple of home games, Game 4 and Game 5, 1971. The at Atlanta game I need to get. This is the away game at the Steelers, 1971. The home game, 1971, game number 6. Away game against Washington, which I always thought Washington did a nice job with their tickets. Again, this is 1971, and look at they have a background and different colors and things like that. Pretty neat job by them earlier on, considering the time period. Game 7, and then we have Game 8 right here. So we finished up 1971 again with a losing record, 4-10, and then we move on to our last season of the 70s, 1970. Here is game number 1, and this is the Bishop's Charity game, the 10th annual. This is a game that the Packers used to run, and in 1970, the Giants played the Packers in this Bishop Charities game, and that's the ticket from that game. Then we have an away game here against the Chargers, August 15th. We have our annual Jets-Giants game at the Yale Bowl. We have a preseason game against the Steelers, which I don't have. But then we have our annual Giants-Eagles preseason game at Palmer Stadium. Then we move on to game number 1 against the Browns at Yankee Stadium, September the 12th. Then game number 2. Game number 3 at home, October 11th. Game number 4, or the next away game against the Boston Patriots, October the 18th at Harvard. Game number 4. Then we have a game at Shea Stadium. It was a Jets home game, November the 1st, 1970. Game number 5 for the Giants at home. Game number 6. Again, the Washington Redskins away game right there. Again, nicely done by them. St. Louis Cardinals, December 13th. Nice full ticket. Then to wrap up 1970, we have game number 7 right here. And then we have a guest ticket for game number 8 for 1970. So 1970, not a bad season, 9-5. But that's where we end up for our 70s collection of New York Giants tickets and stubs. And I hope you join me next time for the 60s. You're getting a little sneak peek down here of what our 60s tickets look like. Again, we go all the way back to the 30s, and I have all of those pages left from 1969 all the way back to the 30s. So tune in next time, and we will go over the 60s. Hope you enjoyed this piece of history, and go Giants.